Welcome, Gunrunner.
Everybody, Kieran aka the Lad here. We're back with another book review. As I said in my previous video, which was looking at the Amiga bookazine from Retro Gamer, I mentioned that I picked up a few bookazines in the Imagine Publishing sale that I didn't previously own, and probably the most interesting one for me that I actually picked up was this one, which is Retro Volume 6. I have quite a lot of the other volumes of Retro, but for some reason I didn't have this one. And for those who don't know, what Retro is actually a compilation of stuff that appeared in Games TM magazine. And although Games TM is a magazine really focused on current gen gaming, it does have a retro section in the back. And so they've basically taken a lot of those articles that appeared in that retro section and compiled them into a bookazine, which I think is fantastic, because I don't read Games TM because I've never been as interested in the current gen stuff. Although I know it's only in probably the last sort of few years that I've actually got back into current gen gaming, and I do actually own an Xbox One now and stuff. But so it's not a magazine I've ever really picked up at all. So these retro bookazines are great for me. I also love the way they've used a take on the old Crash logo, and obviously as a Spectrum owner, I loved Crash magazine. So number 6 is 8. I think they're up to like 8 or 9 now, something like that. So 6 was for some reason one I didn't own. I do own 5. I noticed that when I was looking at my collection. I own 7 and I own 8 certainly. So it was strange that I somehow missed 6. But there we go. We'll have a look at it and see what's in it. To say I picked it up in the sale. It is still available, I believe. So if, like me, you've sort of missed out on one of these bookazines, then I hope this kind of prompts you to go back and have a look and see which ones you might have missed out on, like me, and maybe pick some up. So great cover, Ollie Frey cover. I'm assuming it's Ollie Frey. Certainly looks like one of his. Again, he did all the covers for Crash magazine, so you have kind of very much invoked that Crash magazine feel with how it looks. So let's see the intro, so we can see what's in there. Intro contents, same kind of thing, I suppose. So we've got lots in there. We've got collectors' corners, histories, boss features, conversion catastrophes, retro guys, behind the scenes. It's a pretty meaty book. I mean, it goes well over 200 pages, 228, I believe. Yeah, so well over 200 pages. There's a lot in here. So we will have a look, and I'll try not to spend too long. So Life After Sinclair, interesting start. Looks at the +2. I had a +2A, which is a black model, which is actually that one there. So that was my Spectrum. So I remember that very well. It was my... Well, I did actually have a rubber key for a very short time before moving to the +2A, which is a Christmas present. But the rubber key we had was a bit shonky, didn't work properly. Need a new keyboard membrane. So it wasn't until I got this, the Spectrum +2A, that I got into gaming, I suppose, really. I mean, I learnt to program on that machine and everything, so it was a game that very much got me into programming. Look at some 128 only stuff there, and it's a really good article that actually goes into stuff about the +3 as well. Gauntlet, one of the best arcade games ever, in my opinion, especially if you had some friends to play it with. Try not to let the sun reflect on the page. It's very annoying. Shouldn't really be doing it where I'm sitting in this room, but still managed to catch it somehow. Conversion Catastrophe, Crazy Taxi on the Game Boy Advance. I have to say I've never played it, but I would imagine that the hardware wasn't really up to doing a game like that, so I can see why it might not be very good. Great Space Quest Saga. So going into Space Quest by Sierra. Very well known series. I have to say I've never played it, but then I'm not into those kind of games. So year in review, 95. So talking about stuff like the Saturn and the arrival of the PS1, Virtua Boy. Command & Conquer came out that year. Worms Panzer Dragoon, one of my favourites. There was 2 in the arcades. So this was my favourite thing that when I saw this, because obviously that's me up there, and I did an article of Games TM many years back. I think it was before I even wrote for Retro Gamer. It might have been around the same time. And basically, they were looking for collectors who had really rare items, and I was one of the only people around who had a boxed copy of Klax. The Japanese version I should add for the links, which is different to the Western version. It was the only one of the Japanese Lynx releases that was different, had a different cartridge, a big lump in, different box design. They changed some of the stuff in the game, so the speech samples have been messed around with and stuff like that. So there was lots of things that were different, and that's why it makes it very collectible. A lot of people want the Japanese Klax because of it being different rather than just being exactly the same. And I was lucky enough to pick one up in a big job lot of stuff for almost nothing. So I just looked, I've got job title as freelance writer, so I must have already been writing for Retro Gaming when I did this. But I can't have been writing them for long. So yeah, I had no idea it had been reprinted in this, or I probably would have picked it up a lot earlier. So I was really cool when I was just flicking through it and I saw myself there and went, oh wow, that's really cool. I never knew I was in there. You can see some old stuff in the background there, which is quite cool. Really cool, being a wrestling fan myself. It was really interesting to see this retro guide to wrestling games. I really like how they've done this, mixing up graphics from different games and stuff as well. So and they've gone into the real history, so some real obscure old arcade games there and stuff. And then goes into obviously some of the titles that people know really well, especially WrestleFest, the Fire Pro games. I like the way they've done this, it's really good. Let's see, have they not put... Just looking at the choice there, no Ted DiBiase, that's a shame, he's my favourite all-time wrestler. Just wanted to see if they put him in there. WrestleFest, best wrestling game ever. WrestleFest in my opinion. Such a shame it never got home conversions, or they did a sort of follow-up with more wrestlers or anything like that. They should have capitalised on that and its engine and how well it played and stuff. It's a shame really, but I still play it on main all the time. If I have a fire at main, it's something I pretty much always play. And when I was in Southend last year, I was very pleased to see that they've got a WrestleFest arcade machine in the Astro City arcade, Southend. So if you want to play on a real arcade machine, head down to Southend. Now, I've always called this game Karateka, but then someone was telling me that it's called Karateka. So I'm not sure. Karateka would make sense because obviously it's karate, but Karateka seems like the right way to pronounce it. So I'll still call it Karateka probably, but until I hear someone who worked in the game actually tell me in their own words that it's pronounced like that, I will stick with that. I don't know. But yeah, legendary game, amazing animation, kind of led on to developing Prince of Persia. Another collector's corner there. Now this one, Lakers is Celtics in the NBA playoffs. This one really annoys me because I had this when I was a kid. The Mega Drive, not the Genesis version. I know I did. I know I had the Mega Drive version, and I had that, and I probably let it go for pennies. I don't remember what happened to half of my Mega Drive stuff, to be honest. I think it was passed on to my brother, and then my brother, I think, ended up trading a lot of it in for an N64. So, yeah, Shame, because it's worth loads now. I definitely had one of those. Conversion Catastrophe, Double Dragon 2 on the Mega Drive. It is a poor conversion. I've played it. 1996, so the N64. Pokemon, Mario 64, obviously. God of War there. I'm not sure why that's in there being PlayStation 2. It seems a bit new for retro, but there we go. Demake Factor, really interesting article looking at games that have been remade for old platforms, like, you know, that they did a version of Halo, Portal, Cannabalt, you know, all these games that have been remade, especially, I mean, Halo for the 2600 is probably one of the most notable ones that's been done. A lot of Atari stuff in here as well, which is great. So if you're an Atari fan, these would definitely interest you. Loads of stuff there. Ocarina of Time, Destruction Derby. Own that on the Saturn, love it, brilliant game. Psygnosis were always good anyway. Interesting article there. Enemy Zero on the Saturn, why it's rare. One of the few PAL Saturn games that I don't own. I think there's only about 10. I'm about 10 short of a complete collection, but that is one of them. I probably never will complete that collection, to be honest. If anything, it'll probably go the other way, and I'll probably start selling my Saturn stuff off because it never gets played. It's a shame. I do love the Saturn, but I've just got too much stuff, and these days I just don't have the time to play it. And it just sits in a storage unit and does nothing. So we went to 1997. Grand Theft Auto, obviously the biggest thing from that year. Conversion Catastrophe, Ghostbusters, which is the horrible Nintendo version. They say you should have played it on the C64. I would actually say you should play it on the Atari 8-bit, which I think is personally the best version. Maybe I'm slightly biased on that one though. Donkey Kong. Oh no, I was going to say Donkey Kong Country. It's a guide to Donkey Kong, so all the Donkey Kong games are in there. Obviously, another really long-running franchise, which is still around to this day, with the latest Donkey Kong, was it Tropical Freeze or something like that on the Wii U? Super Mario World. Virtual Catastrophe Super Hang on the 64. I have to say, I've never played the 64 version. And also I wasn't really familiar with it at all, but just looking at those screenshots, it looks absolutely bloody terrible. So I don't think I missed out on anything. The iWar series, I got excited when I saw iWar because it made me think of the Jaguar game iWar, which I would have been very shocked to have seen anything on that, but actually they mean the Independence War. So boo. It's not the Jaguar game that I love. Ultimate Collected Works Collection. Not sure why that's so rare. But there we go. 1998 Dreamcast and stuff. It only just been announced in 98. Game changers, so Sonic the Hedgehog, definitely a big game changer. Look at all the games that he did afterwards as well, and the platforms that led up to it. There's a Catastrophe Line of Fire. Again, the Commodore 64. It looks very poor from the screenshots again, I have to say. But US Gold did release a lot of crap, so that doesn't really surprise me. Jama Lamy. Yeah, not for me, that game. Space Channel 5, never really got that game either. Never really understood the attraction to that game, and I know people who like it. A bit weird for my liking. Jack Brothers. So that's a Virtual Boy game, which means it's automatically rare, but obviously that's probably one of the more rare Virtual Boy games. So Total Carnage on the SNES. 1999, so definitely Dreamcast again. Neo Geo Pocket. Shenmue from that year. Crazy Taxi. UFO Enemy Unknown. The Tetris Affair, so talking all about what happened with Tetris and how it became a Nintendo game, lawsuit with Atari, etc. So here we go, Collector's Corner Famicom box, Interesting kind of ROM changer. I'm guessing it was used for store displays and stuff. Total Annihilation. Seems a bit new to me, but there you go. Persia Catastrophe, kickoff on the Game Boy. I haven't played the Game Boy version, but I'd imagine it's rubbish. It looks rubbish. I never liked the kickoff games anyway, but I can't see how that would work particularly well with the monochrome graphics. It'd be very hard to see which team you are. Let's say you should have played it on the Game Gear, but I used to actually own the Game Gear version. I thought it was horrendous, so I was quite surprised to see that. Great article here. That is not a retro game. It's obviously very retro inspired, which was Retro City Rampage. I'm a big fan of that game. I love it on the 3DS. And my 9-year-old son was really excited to see this article because he loves, loves the game on the 3DS. And I liked the way it showed all the links back to other things. And he found that quite interesting as well, like where they've parodied other games and movies and stuff like that. So that's really, really cool to see all of that stuff in there. Big old article as well. There's a lot. They go into a lot of detail there, which is great. Illusion of Time. Air Raid. Interesting story with Air Raid because it's one that's kind of carried on going once they found a boxed version, and then after that they found a boxed version with instructions, and they kept going for more and more and more money. So yeah, definitely one of the rarest games out there. Always goes for serious cash whenever one turns up. Like a few box copies have turned up now. It's strange when, for years they thought it never even came with a box. And all of a sudden a few box copies turned up. Half-Life 2. Micro Machines. Persia Catastrophe. Now this one, I just don't agree with even slightly. Turbo out on the Mega Drive. And I think the Mega Drive version is pretty good. I don't see what's horrible about it at all. Doesn't make any sense to me. They say here that it's really slow, and I don't think it is really slow at all. They say the graphics are really dull. I don't think they are. They say you should have played it on the Commodore 64. I'd rather play the Mega Drive version than the Commodore 64 version any day of the week. They said the graphics was disgracing Master System. That's nonsense. I don't understand that one at all, personally. Most of them I've agreed with that I've seen in these books, but I've pretty much always agreed with them. But that one I couldn't agree with less. So they've gone back to the year 2000 here. PS2, I was going to say PS2 would be there. Sims. The making of E3, so looking at how the E3 event came about. Some of the biggest moments over the years from E3, which is all quite interesting. Like the announcement of the Saturn and stuff. Retro guide to the Aliens franchise. Right from the early Specky and Commodore 64 game. Only this is Predator on the Jaguar, of course. The brilliant Alien arcade games that have never been converted to home formats. There's a few of them. Alien vs Predator, I think, is still one of my all-time favourite arcade games, but never got a home conversion. Behind the scenes of Scorched Tanks. Please should go 2001. They've gone to here. Game Boy Advance. Fantasy Star Online. Grand Theft Auto 3. We've got a Rob the Robot thing. I don't think that was that rare, but maybe it is to try and get all of it. Ghosts and Goblins. This one made me laugh. Catastrophe, because the C64 version is such garbage. It is so bad. It's almost unbelievable that they had the cheek to release it because it's so bad with the big blocks around the sprites. It is just horrible in every single way. It's barely playable at all. Made me laugh a lot when I first played it. Retro Guide to Simpsons. Good old Simpsons arcade game. That's the best Simpsons game ever made. But I did used to quite like that. My brother had that. Escape from Camp Deadly on the Game Boy. I have good memories of playing that, actually. And the fact it had speech on the Game Boy, which is quite funny as well. I like Hit and Run on the Xbox as well. My son still plays that all the time. It's one of his favourite Xbox games. There's a Catastrophe Defender. Yep, agree with that. 2600 version is horrible. The sprites that flash. But Defender 2, however, on the 2600 is an absolute work of art. It's absolutely bloody amazing. So find every cloud and all that. Okay, I'll send you. Get Brothers classic. Gallagher 2 on the Game Gear. Never even knew that existed. That shows how rare it is. But I love the Gallagher games, so I'd imagine I'd like it. Iconic moment from Space Harrier. 2002. Well, we're getting really new now. So we're looking at, like, got the Xbox is mentioned there, for example. Game Changers. Elite. I was never a fan of Elite. Sue me. It's never a game that grabbed me. My next door neighbour actually had a BBC Micro, so yeah, I'm very familiar with Elite, but it's never really grabbed me. First Catastrophe, Minor 24.9er on the Atari 2600. I've actually written about this game, and the publisher Big 5 Software for Retro Gamer. So it's actually going to appear, I think, in the next issue of Retro Gamer. There's going to be a big article on Big 5 Software. So look out for that if you're a fan of that game and Big 5's work in general. 2600 version, I wouldn't say it's horrible. It's not the greatest because it's only got a few levels. And it moves a bit slowly. It's still playable. It's just not maybe as good as it could have been, but I don't think it's that horrible. I think maybe they were a bit harsh on it there. Let's go to Star Trek. So I was more of a Star Trek man than a Star Wars man, so this is quite interesting to me. I love the old Sega arcade game of Star Trek, and there's a brilliant game on the Wii as well, Star Trek game. I can't think what it's called, Star Trek Conquest or something like that. Love that game. So, interesting article there. And that's basically it. That's a look at Retro 6. So if you love the retro games, like the retro games, you love the retro games, of course, yeah. If you love the retro bookazines, that's the word I was looking for. Like me, because you don't read games to me like collecting them, and you haven't got this one, then definitely pick up this one, because I think from actually having got this now, I think it's probably one of my favourites that they've done in terms of the content and the stuff that I like in it. Got some really, really, really good articles in there, like the especially like the wrestling one, the Retro City Rampage one. Really good article on Destruction Derby, The Simpsons, so some Star Trek. There's some really, really good stuff. Aliens as well, mentioned that. Yeah, so again, I'll just keep mentioning them. Some really, really good articles in this. So highly recommended that you pick this one up if you don't actually have Retro 6. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I will be back again soon with lots more great videos, including some more. I've got some more book reviews to do, and I've got some other really cool stuff planned as well. So carry on watching, and if you haven't subscribed, obviously make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on more great content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye bye.